Our first session today will be an armchair discussion with Drew Wilby, Deputy Minister of Labour Relations and Workplace Safety, and Collin Pullar, the SCSA President. Collin has been President of the Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association since 2004. Prior to joining the SCSA, he spent several years working in roles in labour market development and technology management. He serves on a number of industry and community boards.
We're also going to have Drew Wilby. He has held a number of senior roles in career and public servant with the government of Saskatchewan, including advisor to the Premier and Cabinet. In May 2023, he was appointed as the Deputy Minister of Labour Relations and Workplace Safety. He is responsible for overseeing the work of the ministry and its four main program service areas: employment standards, labor relations and mediation, occupational health and safety, and the Office of the Workers' Advocate. Welcome, Collin and Drew.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Stephen. Hey, really appreciate everybody who's joined us and today, and those who spoke on the last day or so, and the folks who are going to be speaking a little bit later. Really appreciate you giving your time and especially and your leadership to the industry. Drew, welcome. Glad to see you looking good.
Thanks, Collin. Really happy to be here. Pass that right back at you. You're always the best guy in the shop.
Excellent. So for those who are watching and listening today, Drew and I are going to try to squeeze a lot in a very short period of time. We're going to try to cover everything from kind of the broad economic kind of picture in terms of where safety fits in our growth plan. I'll talk about the ministry level. I have some questions to him about things in whether it be legislation or standards, and then I think we'll also, if we can fit this in, to be able to talk about kind of your view on the relationship with industry and the ministry itself. So we're good with that. We are going to try, if possible, to capture questions. Again, we're going to be fairly tight. So if we do miss your question, we apologize. We'll see if we can do some follow-up a little bit later. So Drew, is there anything you wanted to start off with?
Oh, I just really appreciate you folks having me here today and the ability to connect virtually. I mean, obviously it's nice to be in person, but the virtual connection here with the membership of the Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, obviously a key partner with us and where we're headed here as a ministry going forward, and of course as a government too. So just a huge shout out to all of you. Look forward to meeting many of you in person here in the future, but really happy to be here with you, Collin.
All right, great, thanks. Maybe let's open kind of from the big picture if we can, Drew.
Sure.
A lot of us who work in the industry, or maybe safety specifically, may not be fully aware of how and why workplace safety is important from the perspective of the government of Saskatchewan, and specifically, the question is there a link to what we do to the bigger strategy of government and the economy more broadly?
Absolutely. Government a few years ago released their growth plan. And so the plan in there is to obviously grow the population, but also to increase the number of jobs across the province quite significantly. So as that work continues in those key sectors, and as the economy does grow, obviously we need to make sure that workers are safe, and we've got that balance between employers and employees. And so the work of both the ministry and the safety associations is crucial in making sure that, number one, our workers are safe in the work that they're doing. Number two, we're, equipped and ready to meet the needs of what's happening out there. If we all of a sudden have some new industry that starts up, from our perspective, we've got to make sure we've got occupational health and safety officers that can go out and can work with whoever that is that's out there, and make sure that they're equipped to deal with the pieces that they've got, as well, making sure that their workers are being kept safe on the job site, of course. And then as things change, I was out in Vancouver last week, and we had a great presentation on gender diverse PPE and how important that is in making sure, that those pieces fit and as such. And just a great presentation. The Building Trades Council of BC was there. A lot of their members showed us some of the different pieces that they're wearing and, what's going on. So, from that overarching piece of the growth plan, and then down into the labor market strategy too, that Immigration and Career Training has recently released, we're a key plank in making sure those levers continue to pull, and that there's success going forward.
Drew, a little bit later this morning, we're going to be having a discussion about labor with some folks from industry, including the building trades and some of the industry associations. And I wonder if you can maybe talk a little bit more about some of the efforts government's making to try and ensure we've got a sustainable, attractive place for investment. And again, how does that connect to from the safety perspective and from your seat?
Yeah, no matter who I meet with in whatever industry, but especially, I mean, of course, in yours and in construction, it's a labor shortage. We know that the biggest pinch point going forward is going to be getting qualified, skilled labor coming in to be able to do a lot of that work that needs to be done, especially within the trades. And so immigration career training, one of my partner ministries, they've released the labor market strategy for the future, a great piece that talks about government's efforts at both growing homegrown labor as well as foreign workers and bringing immigrants into the province to, number one, grow the province, and number two, make sure that our key industries and others have got the labor that they require. So for us, it's how do we help sustain that? We're a human service ministry, but we're also an economic ministry. And if we really wanted to, we could put the stop on a lot of stuff that's going on, which of course we're not going to do. We want to help sustain that, move that ahead, but making sure, again, that we're keeping workers safe. We've got appropriate employment standards in place, and our folks are equipped with dealing those pieces.
So is there collaboration between LRWS and other ministries in this space? Or that wouldn't have been a place I would have thought of several years back, as something where other deputy ministers are actually leaning into to safety specifically and particularly in our industry.
Yeah, there definitely is collaboration. We really look at it as a one government or a one team approach. Okay. How can we each pull our own weight on that side? So whether it be trade and economic development, immigration career training, I know often when we're talking to industry, it's your government, and we realize that. We segment ourselves out by the different ministries that we are, but when we appear to the public or to industry, it's your representative government. And so, yeah, I may have the title of labor relations and workplace safety, but I'm helping out with my counterparts over there in ICT or TED or other areas as well.
Okay, cool. Well, if you're okay, Drew, can we talk a little bit about the ministry, the OHS team, and I know over the last several years, the ministry's gone through a number of transformation in terms of its approach to business, and you and I have had some conversations about that. I wonder if you'd be willing to share some of your thoughts on transformation.
Absolutely, Collin. I know historically the ministry, especially in OH&S, has been very enforcement heavy. Some change has been made over the last couple of years to work more collaboratively with industry to make sure that we're all moving the benchmarks on safety. And so I really look at it from call it a three-legged stool, if you will, or a three-pronged approach. But it's education first and foremost, after that intervention where required, and then enforcement if needed. And so by education, I don't necessarily mean, webinars and training sessions. You folks do a fantastic job of that. Our partners in WCB do that as well. But anytime we've got an officer that's out on a work site, part of their role is to educate both the workers and management and whatever that employer is to make sure they've got the tools that they require to keep people safe. I was out at the refinery there last summer, and the individual I was with, he sat down with the Occupational Health and Safety Committee on site. He made sure that they understood, the parameters of what we were talking about. He walked them through the regulations. We went out on site. We did some inspections. We found some issues and contraventions. He brought them back and he walked them again through the regulations to explain, here's why this is something that we don't want to see. Really important stuff there. And so I think that education first, it's moving. We're getting there. We're working through it. There's going to be times where we've got to go and enforce. If we've got a roofer that's fallen off of a roof with a safe on, clearly, we're moving to enforcement. That's a risk to life. That's a dangerous piece. So we've got to deal with that immediately. If we have an unfortunate thing like a workplace fatality, of course, we're moving to enforcement quickly. But as long as we can work with folks and create that partnership approach and make sure that, as long as we're building that culture of compliance, that's a lot easier to come in with an open hand than it is with a closed fist. I'll tell you that.
I would suggest that it's probably more of a relational approch to how things have been, as comparison to how you do things in the past. I apologize. Could we talk a little bit about, there's been a lot more collaboration, I would even say, between our organization and LRWS And yes, you've used us as a resource, and I think in turn we've also come to your team to try to understand the perspective from a compliance seat and seeing how that applies here. Um, the relationship is shaped to be much more positive, I think, and productive to achieve goals. In your sense, there's been some things that you've done internally. I think everything from the type of people that you recruit to the styles of leadership that has probably supported that. Again, you and I have maybe talked about offline on some of these things, or is there more that you want to share on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're spot on there, Colin. Just building those relationships and establishing those and being able to draw upon them, where you need them, where you can get that support, or if there's questions and move things ahead. I look at our regulatory reviews that we do, our legislative reviews, and knowing that we can, send out letters and folks are going to respond, or they might call in and say, what about this? Have you thought about that? Just continuing to build that out is crucial. To the frontline staff specifically, and I think kind of where you're getting at there is we've seen a change in our employees. We're bringing a lot of folks in from industry that have that industry experience and can go and speak to folks in the industry, as opposed to maybe bringing folks in from the enforcement side. There's nothing wrong with ex-cops and the such, but sometimes that mindset is a little different than working with an industry partner and trying to figure out what that compliance looks like and how do we continue to achieve that together.
Are there any areas that you're thinking of in the next while to do further engagement with the industry? Any key topics, issues that you want to bring? And maybe we can just mention now that might be coming down the pipe.
Absolutely. The next big one for us, we're just closing out our review of employment standards. We'll package that up and look to potentially bring some legislation forward if we need to. That would be sometime after the upcoming election. But the next big one we're about to embark on is a review of the occupational health and safety regulations. They haven't been reviewed in over 20 years. I know probably a lot of folks on the call here today, they deal with those on a daily basis out on the work site. So we will be having a fairly significant consultation phase around that, looking at everything that's contained within those regulations, just to make sure that we're modernized. Things have changed in 20 years. Technology has changed. A lot of those pieces that are in there are now, as crazy as it sounds, almost archaic. And so, drawing on our partners there, both within the safety world as well as within industry, to make sure that we've got a comprehensive piece on there and understand where we're going. So we'll look for that probably, we've got this big thing in our world, the election coming up here in the fall.
Right.
So probably shortly thereafter, I would say by the end of this calendar year, we'll probably get rolling.
Yeah. Right. Actually, just a question just popped up in the chat that might be good to talk a little bit about on your strategy for coverage in the province. Obviously, there's a ton of work happening, from one corner of the province to the opposite, and coverage is certainly something that everybody asks about. I'm frequently asked about it, and so I wonder if that's something that you could speak to a bit.
Yeah, definitely. A great question there, Kevin. I think that's who asked it. We've got 68 officers in the province right now. So that's occupational health and safety officers doing everything from mines to refineries to small business to you name it, of course, across the board, construction, heavy construction, looking after those. So at this point, we do feel we've got coverage. The North is always an interesting one for us. Of course, the mining sector, our mines unit, which is a dedicated group, are able to get up there and look after those pieces. But there are other industries up there in the North that sometimes are a little bit trickier to get to. So we'll continue to look at that and where some of that development happens. But I think, Collin, you hit it on the head. We've got BHP Billiton that's about to open up in Jansen. We've got the potential for nuclear development around the province. We've got lithium down in the Southwest. We've got housing left, right, and center. We're going to have storms. They're going to create those roofing challenges that we see almost every year. So we'll continue to watch what happens. Look at, are we ensuring we've got the right staff complement so we're not delaying industry down by not having the people that need to be out there and doing the work, and also that we've got enough to make sure that workers are going home safe at the end of the night. So appreciate the question there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I really appreciate and had conversations with, either yourself or predecessors is something that continuously comes to me is in terms of creating an environment where it's a level playing field for all those involved. And part of that is consistent enforcement, across the industry here. So, so that we could also, play the fair game that we're intended to. So, this is so it's a big topic. I appreciate you talking about that. Are there a couple of other areas or any other areas that, with respect to employment standards, that might be important to talk about today? I know May, I think it was just at the end of the month here. We've got some things that come full in force. Would you want to share a bit about that?
Sure, yeah. And sort of from across the perspective of the ministry as a whole, we've got our employment standards work is kind of wrapping up there. As I said on that review, we do have some new provisions that are coming in through occupational health and safety. May 17th is the legislative required deadline to have a violence prevention plan in place for all businesses across the province. We also recently passed some harassment provisions too. So now, of course, all businesses need to have a harassment policy and prevention plan in place as well. So some of those, key things that are required. And, I think part of the question I, maybe put back to you is, are we doing a good enough job of making these requirements known? Are we communicating well and in effective ways there, Collin, to you and the folks that I know you work with on a daily basis to make sure that those things are known, that they're required? And I would hate for us not to be communicating effectively, and then all of a sudden an inspector shows up on a site and says, well, you need this, and then issues a notice of contravention, and the communication is all on us. So can we turn the table back to you and ask you how that relationship is going?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. One of the things that we try to do as an organization is be effective communicators in what we do as well. So whether that be through our advisory services, folks who are out day in and day out on site with organizations, or we've got a great platform, whether it be something like this today, or through our website or our digital communications tools. So there's a number of tools that we certainly employ, but I realize it doesn't reach everybody all the time. And so one of the things we want to be able to do is be effective partners in that regard too, as information comes out. And our electronic newsletter, and particularly for those, if you haven't signed up for that, be sure you do. I think that is e-news. I think we reached 16 or 18,000 individuals right now in the province with those blasts that go out once every 2, 3, or 4 weeks, and we try to get current information to you. So I think it's really important to pay attention to those for our members. And again, we'll use our other formats, radio, television where we can, and those kind of pieces to help communicate to our industry things that are really important. So you would have seen just popped up in the chat how to get onto our e-newsletter. Take that. Again, it's grown quite a bit. I think when we started, we may have had 4,000 or 5,000 people, and people have just continues to sign on. I think it's a great way to stay informed, and also provide some feedback. There's always a feedback loop for us to be able to let us know what your needs are, and we also share that back with the ministry as another avenue. Drew, I think one of the things you've also been really eager to do, and it may be through our table, it may be through other folks in industry, is to be able to do periodic roundtables with industry to kind of gather further information, whether that be yourselves or personally, or with kind of key members of your team on that. Perhaps do you want to talk a little bit about some of that, and how maybe we can help you with that.
Oh, absolutely. And thanks for raising that one, Collin, because that is something that, I'm eager to do. I have done quite a bit already, but not nearly enough. Had a chance to meet with Kevin Duro and the Saskatchewan Construction Association yesterday when they did their lobby days. And every time I have the conversation, I learn a lot. And so, yeah, absolutely. If there's opportunities for either myself or I have a new assistant deputy minister here in charge of sort of our operations programs area, Alyssa Aitken, if we can come out and meet with folks as they're having those meetings and discussions, and just, again, break down those artificial barriers, that sort of erupt between government and industry and folks. And have those conversations early and often so we understand what's going on. What are some of those challenging pieces? Is there something that's being seen out there that we can do a better job of, and vice versa? Or can we just continue to, establish that relationship and then draw upon it, as we talked about earlier? When I was in the Justice Ministries, I went up to Laurent, and it was one of the most eye-opening experiences for me to go to Laurent, up to Pelican, and then to Sandy Bay. And, as I went along, they said, well, who are you? And I said, well, I'm just Drew from Regina. I didn't want to use a title or anything like that because I hate that. I take off the suit and I'm just kind of who I am. And they just opened up and talked about their experiences. And same thing, here, to go on a job site and just hear about the experiences, what's going on, what's working, what's not. I say, I can't do much from this 4th floor office tower in downtown Regina. And, I can think a lot of thoughts, but the folks you learn from are the folks that are on the ground, that are doing the work, that are creating that innovation. I think about a meeting I had just last week in Moose Jaw with a small business owner in the restaurant area. So I know not industry specific here, but just the things I learned from him about what make it easier for him to do his business and for that seamless approach to government. And that's really where the gold is made, if we can say that. So anytime, those tables are open or there's an opportunity, by all means, reach out to me in my office, reach out through Collin. I'd love to have those conversations and just be able to sit down and have a good discussion.
Great, thanks. We have a one more question in the chat here that's just should be popping up here. I think it's a great one. By the way, we just got a few minutes left, so please, if you do have a question, pop it into the chat here. We'll see if we can catch it before we wrap up. But Kevin's got a great question. I think is there a provincial ministry strategy coming about getting health and safety discussions in the schools, say grade 7, 8, beyond? Your thoughts on that, Drew? I mean, it's a topic that comes up quite regularly.
Kevin, great question. Thanks for raising it. I talk about innovation and the lack of innovation here in the fourth floor of the downtown office building. And right here, we're seeing innovation. Why don't we have health and safety discussions in school at that level to try to build that culture and flow that out? Couple that now with, the conversation around encouraging those kids to move into the trades as well, as opposed to, well, you need to go down the university education route. Let's move them through into the trades or encourage that at that age. Couple it with the health and safety. And then, we're knocking 2 birds off with one stone. I got 2 boys. Well, I got 3 boys. One's 10, so he's not near the workforce. I got one who's 21. He's in business school. Don't know what he's going to do. But my other guy, he's a parts guy. And he just decided this couple weeks ago, hey, I'm going to apply for heavy duty mechanics down in Estevan. So he's heading down in September to go do that, get involved, get into a trade, get it working, and get moving through. And so, I mean, it's so important, I think, if we could couple those 2 pieces together. So again, Kevin, great question. And absolutely, that's something we'll take home. We'll have a look at and see if we can't move towards something there with our partners in education.
Great question. And, if I could add to this as well, Drew, having a bit of a background in labor market development from,
for sure,
going back a couple hats ago, this topic comes up all the time in our industry, saying, hey, we're trying to attract people to come into our industry, but their perceptions of the industry is really important, whether it be the parents' perception or the kids' perspective. Part of that is this a safe thing to do? Because there's options available for kids that, especially now, more options than ever in terms of careers. And so this is really, an important element of just marketing the industry as an area to build a profession and build a good lifestyle and to be able to do all sorts of creative things in the world of construction. So this is this is something that has a lot of hit both on the cultural perspective in terms of how we view the trades in the industry, but also just from an economic perspective as well. Drew, we have a couple more. Oh, this is great. Yeah, we've got Campus Regina. I forgot about them.
Absolutely.
That great topic there. Drew, you've got any closing thoughts here? I'm watching our time here, but I want to make sure that you get your key thoughts in here. And if we still have time for another question or two, I'll try to squeeze it in.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Collin. And I mean, just from my perspective, we're not the big scary government, or at least I don't want to be. I'm not a very scary guy, I don't think. We want to be partners moving ahead. I've talked a little bit about that education first, intervention, and enforcement concept. We're going to keep working on that. As we talked earlier, if the opportunities are there to have someone out, whether it's myself or Alyssa or maybe, Brian Lloyd's well known from OH&S, and just to, again, open those doors and have those conversations about what's going on, what's happening in the world, what are things we should know, and vice versa. I think those would be great. So appreciate the work of the membership, appreciate everything you folks do at SCSA, and just the relationships and dynamics that we have established.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. I mean, I echo, a lot of work's been done over the last few years between, I think the ministry and industry and specifically with the SCSA to try to educate each other and find areas that we can work together. Clearly, we have different roles. Our area is clearly in, training and educating members and Drew's team primarily focus. Yes, there's a compliance element, but along the way, making sure that people are aware that there's other options available in terms of their approach to doing work and identifying issues that could be potential catastrophes and letting them know where the resources are. And so it's been good to be able to work with you and. Again, your predecessor and I've had several conversations with that, and we'll try to continue to keep that going. I think our teams are getting together here in the next week or two to kind of give each other updates on some key technical things that are happening, and I think that that in turn will give us opportunity to kind of share that with the industry as well. So with that, Drew, again, I really appreciate you taking the time this morning. I know how your days get wild and busy, and so I again thank you so much. Thank you for folks throwing your questions and comments out there. Again, Drew's team will be is obviously available for questions. I think don't be afraid to reach out to their team on key issues available through their website. You'll find contact information as well as our own team at scsaonline.ca, and to find out if there's something that you need, reach out to us. And Jean and Stephen, if you guys are ready, I will hand the reins back to you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Collin and Drew. That was a great discussion. A lot of questions answered and good engagement from the crowd here.